People always ask me why I stayed as long as I did. They usually wait until we're alone, like the answer might bruise them if anyone else overheard it. Their voices soften, their heads tilt. Sympathy arrives before I've even spoken. They expect tears, or anger, or regret. No one ever asks why he left so quietly. In the beginning, I thought I'd found something rare. He listened when I spoke. He remembered small details. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. That was when I stopped trying to explain myself. Instead, I watched. That's when I learned something about people like him. That's how it starts, I think, when it's done well. The first time I noticed myself shrinking, it was over something so small I almost laughed about it afterward. I corrected him on a date. Gently, I thought, about the name of a restaurant we'd gone to before. He paused, just long enough to be noticeable. "I don't think that's right," he said. I smiled. "I'm pretty sure it is." Another pause. A sigh this time. "You do this sometimes," he said quietly. "You challenge things just to challenge them." The words landed heavier than they should have. I felt myself flushing, scrambling for the right response. I wasn't. "It's okay," he interrupted, touching my arm. "I just want us to communicate better." Later that night, I apologized. I'm still not sure what for. Friends became draining. My job was taking advantage of my kindness. My interests were fine, but impractical. He encouraged me to rest more, to stay in, to simplify. I mistook narrowing for peace. Over time, I noticed that my world had gotten very small, and he was always at the center of it. He had rules, though he never called them that. They were preferences, boundaries, what works best for us. I shouldn't talk about our relationship with others. I shouldn't post personal things online. I shouldn't question him in front of people. It embarrassed him. Whenever I complied, he rewarded me with warmth. Whenever I didn't, the air changed. Not dramatically, just enough to make me uncomfortable. Silence can be very persuasive when you're trying to avoid it. He never called me names. He never threatened me. If you asked him, he would have said he was patient, understanding, burdened sometimes by my emotional fluctuations. I started keeping mental notes, things I'd bring up later, conversations I wanted to revisit. Eventually, I stopped bringing them up at all. We were at a dinner with people from his work. I didn't know them well. I sat politely, nodded when expected, smiled when the conversation turned my way. Halfway through the meal, one of them laughed and said, "I still can't believe what you told us about her sister." I felt my smile freeze. "My sister?" I asked lightly. He didn't look at me. "Oh, did I not tell you?" We talked about it later. We hadn't. In the car afterward, I asked him about it. Carefully, casually, as if I wasn't already rehearsing his denial in my head. He waved it off. It came up naturally. It wasn't a big deal. "That was private," I said. He glanced at me, surprised, not by my words, but by my tone. "You trust me, don't you?" he asked. It wasn't a question. It was a test. Something clicked then. Not loudly, not violently, just a quiet recalibration. He didn't need me to trust him. He needed me to doubt myself. Once I saw that, everything rearranged itself. Moments I'd dismissed as misunderstandings sharpened into patterns. His stories shifted depending on the audience. His memory was flawless when it benefited him and foggy when it didn't. I realized how often I'd accepted his version of events simply because it was delivered with confidence. So I stopped arguing. Instead, I watched. I noticed how he spoke for me in groups, finishing my sentences before I could. I noticed how he borrowed my ideas and presented them later as his own, watching my face to make sure I didn't react. I noticed how relaxed he became when he thought he had control. That was when I began the long game. I didn't announce it, not even to myself. I just started behaving differently on the inside while remaining exactly the same on the outside. I became agreeable in ways that required no effort. I asked questions instead of making statements. I let him explain things I already understood. And quietly, meticulously, I documented everything. I saved messages, took screenshots, kept notes with dates and exact phrasing. Not because I planned to expose him, but because I needed something solid. Something that didn't shift when he spoke. He assumed I wouldn't check the accounts. Numbers bored me, he said. He assumed I wouldn't notice discrepancies. He assumed I wouldn't remember conversations from months ago. Assumptions are dangerous when someone is patient. I began reconnecting with people he'd slowly edged out, not dramatically, not all at once. Just a coffee here, a message there. I never complained about him. I didn't need to. I simply stopped covering for him. The change was subtle at first. A hesitation when his name came up. A pause before people agreed with him. He started to sense it before he could name it. He told me people were becoming difficult. Political. Sensitive. I listened. There was a meeting, one he expected to dominate, that didn't go the way he planned. He came home unsettled, replaying conversations aloud, trying to locate the moment control slipped through his fingers. They were acting strange, he said. Like they didn't trust me. I looked up at him and said, gently, why would they? The question lingered between us. After that, he became restless, suspicious. He asked me if I'd said anything to anyone. I met his eyes and told the truth. No. What I didn't say was that I no longer needed to. When he finally decided to leave, he framed it as self-preservation, growth, clarity. He spoke carefully, choosing words that made him sound thoughtful rather than desperate. I let him speak. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I said, if that's what you need. He packed slowly, deliberately, as if waiting for me to collapse to prove him right. I didn't. He left believing he'd chosen freedom. What he never understood was that the moment he walked out, the story stopped being his. I didn't destroy him. I didn't have to. I simply stepped out of the way and let the truth occupy the space his confidence used to fill. The aftermath was quiet. No celebrations. No closure conversations. Just space. And in that space, I found myself again. Unbraced, unafraid, unmeasured. Sometimes I think about how carefully he constructed his image. How certain he was that charm could protect him forever. He still thinks he left me. I let him keep that belief. Revenge is loud when you still need it. Mine was quiet because I didn't. And that, I think, is the part that will stay with him the longest. Not knowing when he lost. Or how. Or to whom. Or things no one tells you about living inside someone else's gravity. How your body learns before your mind does. How you start anticipating moods the way sailors anticipate weather. How your muscles tighten at sounds that once meant nothing. The click of a door, the pause before a reply, the weight of silence settling into a room. I didn't notice it happening. That's the truth. If I had, I might have stopped it sooner. But control rarely arrives as force. It arrives as accommodation, as small adjustments made in the name of love or harmony, or simply not wanting to be difficult. I became very good at not being difficult. I learned which questions exhausted him and which ones flattered him. I learned that curiosity could feel like criticism if phrased the wrong way. I learned to present my thoughts as extensions of his, so they would be accepted without resistance. Sometimes, when I was alone, I'd practice sentences out loud, testing different tones, different word choices, until they sounded harmless enough to survive. That was when I understood that I was no longer speaking to communicate. I was speaking to manage. There was an afternoon I remember clearly. We were in a bookstore, one of those quiet ones with narrow aisles and handwritten recommendation cards tucked under the shelves. I picked up a book and smiled, genuinely excited. "Oh," he said lightly, glancing at the cover. "That's not really your kind of thing, is it?" I hesitated. The smile faded before I could stop it. "I thought it might be," I said. He shrugged. "I just don't see you getting through it." The moment passed. He wandered off to another section. I put the book back. Later, I couldn't remember why I had. only that it felt necessary. These were the moments that accumulated. The ones that seemed too small to argue over, too insignificant to name. Each one shaved off a fraction of myself until I started mistaking absence for peace. When people asked how we were doing, I said we were good. I meant it. Compared to what I'd learned to expect, we were. I told myself this was what maturity looked like. Compromise, self-awareness, letting go of ego. What I didn't realize was that I was the only one letting go of anything. The night I finally stopped trying to fix things between us wasn't dramatic. There was no fight, no raised voices, just a moment of clarity that arrived unexpectedly, like cold air through an open window. He was explaining something to me, slowly, patiently, the way he always did when he thought I didn't understand. I knew the subject well, better than he did, actually. But I nodded, asked questions, let him continue. At one point he said, "See, this is why I handle these things. You get overwhelmed." Something in me went very still. I realized then that no amount of confidence would ever change how he saw me. Not because I lacked it, but because he needed me not to have it. That was the moment I stopped wanting his approval. From the outside, nothing changed. I laughed at the same jokes. I kept the same routines. I continued to smooth over awkward moments and absorb tension quietly. Inside, I withdrew my belief. That's an important distinction. I didn't withdraw affection, or cooperation, or care. I withdrew belief in his authority over reality. Once that was gone, everything else was logistics. I began noticing how often he contradicted himself without realizing it, how his version of events depended on who was listening, how easily he assumed his interpretation would be accepted without question. I started asking him to clarify things, not confrontationally, just gently. "Can you help me understand? I might be remembering wrong. Didn't you say earlier?" He'd laugh it off at first, then bristle, then explain too much. The more he talked, the more visible the cracks became. I didn't expose him. I didn't need to. I just stopped filling in the gaps. That's when other people began to notice. It wasn't one big moment. It never is. It was a series of small hesitations. People asking follow-up questions he wasn't used to answering. Colleagues comparing notes. Friends exchanging glances they didn't bother hiding. He came home one evening and stood in the kitchen longer than usual, staring at nothing. "They don't look at me the same way anymore," he said. I kept my voice neutral. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he said sharply. "Something's changed." He searched my face then, like he was trying to locate a missing object. "You'd tell me if you'd said something, right?" I met his eyes. Calm, open, honest. "Of course," I said, and I meant it. I hadn't said anything. The truth didn't need my voice anymore. The weeks that followed felt like living beside a man slowly losing altitude. He became more controlling in small ways, more insistent, more precise, but less effective. Authority doesn't survive scrutiny, and once it's questioned, it doesn't return intact. When he told me he was leaving, there was relief in his voice disguised as resolve. He spoke like someone who had rehearsed the speech alone, expecting applause. He told me he needed space, that he'd been carrying too much, that I deserved someone who could meet me where I was. I listened carefully. I always did. When he finished, I waited a beat longer than necessary before responding. "If that's what you believe," I said, "then I won't stop you." That pause unsettled him. I saw it flicker across his face, the absence of resistance, the lack of pleading. He packed with ceremony, carefully folding shirts, aligning shoes, leaving the door open longer than required. I sat in the other room and read. When the door finally closed behind him, the sound felt smaller than I'd expected. The days after were strange. Not painful, just unfamiliar. I kept waiting for the tension to return, like phantom pressure where something had been gripping me for years. Instead, there was quiet. Not the heavy kind, the honest kind. I noticed how easily my thoughts moved without interruption. How I could finish sentences in my head without bracing for correction. How decisions no longer required justification. I slept deeply. I ate when I was hungry. I spoke without rehearsing. People began telling me I seemed different. Lighter, one said. More yourself, another. I thanked them without explaining. I heard things about him later. Not gossip, just information drifting back in fragments. Confusion. Frustration. Stories that didn't quite add up. He told people I'd changed, that I'd become distant, that he didn't recognize me anymore. They nodded politely. Some of them had already noticed. The coldest part isn't what happened to him. It's that I don't wonder anymore. I don't check his name when it comes up. I don't rehearse imaginary conversations. I don't feel the urge to correct the story. He exists now as a finished chapter, closed without ceremony. He still believes he left me. I allow that belief to live undisturbed, because the truth is quieter than accusation and far more permanent. Revenge is loud when you still need the other person to hear it. Mine didn't need an audience. It simply required my absence. And once I withdrew that, once I stopped believing in the version of myself he needed me to be, there was nothing left for him to take. Only space. Only silence. Only the sound of a door closing, long after the power had already gone.